I went to a Christian seminary. Every week at the Christian seminary, we attended the weekly worship service, and if I recall correctly, every week they offered an open table communion. Being raised Jewish and being a practicing Unitarian Universalist, I never took communion. I just didn't think it was right. Now, never once during that worship service, and I'm pretty sure this is true, but it was a long time ago, so I don't remember exactly, but never once did I feel unwelcome. I knew where I was. I was at a Methodist seminary. I was raised Jewish. I was a practicing Unitarian Universalist, and I knew where I was. And although I didn't always agree with the theology and the practice being ritualized, I also found it interesting, informative, and sometimes deeply spiritual and meaningful. I have often been asked if people of other faiths or Fox News watchers or political conservatives are really welcome here. And I respond with a firm yes. In fact, although they have not always felt welcome here, I wish more of those people would come. And this is important. Being present in a Unitarian Universalist service is one thing. Being a practicing Unitarian Universalist is another. It would be wonderful that if those who come here, for whatever reason, would be respectful of the practice of this faith. That means curious of our values, open to hearing different theological, philosophical, and political views, and engaging in a way that might bring discussion, but wouldn't openly bring intentional conflict. I hope that if any of us were to visit another religious community, we would act in the same way. I know that our coming-of-age kids do that. We can disagree and still be respectful. Where we all get into trouble is when fear and anger and sometimes hate cause behaviors that are not only not welcoming, but are othering. And that are theologies that say that some are less than others. How we treat each other, how we covenant to be together, how we work through our differences, and how we live the example of what we hope to see in the world, that is a big part of the practice of Unitarian Universalism. Anyone is truly welcome here, but every behavior is not. The practice of Unitarian Universalism is so much greater than the debate about the words we use. It's about the actions that we take. It's about how we live day to day in ways that honor those words, whether you believe them to be principles or values or covenants or the gospel. What does it mean to practice being welcoming? Not just saying or singing it, that all are welcome. I asked Laura to have the choir sing "You Will Be Found" today. I wanted to start this year with a couple of things that are true all at once. To talk about living this faith both within these walls and beyond them, our theme for this year, beyond our walls, reaching out in love. This is Water Communion Sunday. The meaning of that has evolved through the years. It has always been a symbolic ritual of coming back together after a summer spent apart, but this year, we wanted to use the imagery to highlight those who may feel adrift or isolated, or without community, or feeling threatened or targeted by theologies and politics of fear or othering. All of those who may feel these ways to know that here they can be found. that in this place made holy by those who inhabit it, you can be seen and you can be loved and you can be known for who you are. If we are practicing and not just talking about it or thinking about it, but practicing this faith, that sense of love and welcoming and safety will be practiced and felt here at UUCF. That is my hope, and that is my prayer, but it needs to be more than just hopes and prayers, to flow out into this world, into this country, and into these days of challenge. We have to try and practice it here within our walls and with each other, but it can't just be about what happens here. We also have to make sure that the practice of Unitarian Universalism must reach out in love beyond our walls as much and as often as possible. This week, I got an email from someone in our community who's an elected official. And the email said, "Thank you so much for what you're doing at UUCF. And thank you so much for the support that I feel as an elected official through your actions." I'm saving that email. They expressed the sense of how much this work on behalf of this faith community in the world was so deeply meant, it meant so much to them. Sometimes we don't know the difference our actions make, and luckily sometimes we do. Listen, I've been saying this more and more lately. We will never do any of this perfectly. We will make mistakes. We will say the wrong thing. We will think too much about what we want more than what is good for others. We will get disappointed and angry and frustrated, but that is why we practice. That is why we practice coming back together when relationships have been broken. That is why we practice humility when we have far often thought that we were right. That is why we practice kindness and compassion when things get complicated and challenging. That is why we practice being welcoming when we have too narrow a view of our own tribe. And that is why we are called upon to practice finding the root of what it means to be loving, to try and fill our lives and this world and our actions with the most loving things that we can do, as much as possible, as best as possible, especially for those who may need it the most. On this in-gathering Sunday, it feels important at the start of the congregational year for us to aspire to be intentional about these things. Amen.